The last time we talked Halo, it had become among the biggest names in gaming with the release and success of Halo 3, cementing Bungie under Microsoft's jurisdiction as a genre-defining studio capable of so much more. There was just one problem. They were running on empty, and their time telling the story of Halo was sure to come to a close. Peter Jackson of Weta Workshop's fame was working on both a film and Halo Chronicles, an episodic adventure game, and with Bungie ready to end their contract and become an independent studio, Microsoft was busy looking for a future steward for the world of Halo. This was a cultural juggernaut now. It had turned the scrappy Xbox from a weird Dreamcast with DirectX support into a household name, and the Xbox 360 was outselling the PlayStation 3, not helped by the latter's very steep price tag. Unfortunately, sometime in 2008, progress on the Halo film halted, and Chronicles was grinding its gears. The B team who had been moved to work with Jackson's team regrouped, and they needed something to patch a hole in their release schedule. Their magnum opus was at least 2 years from launch, and every year without a new Halo was money burning. The team, led by producer Curtis Creamer, that's his actual name and not a Culver's mascot, pitched a 3-hour mini-campaign to Microsoft, and a deal was struck. The Halo series was ready to move backwards. See, Halo 3 ODST isn't a sequel to Halo 3. In fact, it's actually set during the events of Halo 2, of all things. When the ship in Halo 2's opening mission retreats from the Earth in a slip-space jump, Master Chief chases after it to learn of the Covenant's plans. But not everyone followed suit. The Orbital Drop Shock Team crash lands in New Mombasa to learn what the Covenant was up to. Unfortunately, the player arrives much too late, spending 6 hours comatose in their drop pod before being unceremoniously dumped into the dilapidated late-night city streets with only their wits and guns. One thing ODST, which is what I'm calling this game from here on out, Halo 3 ODST just does not work, does not flow, makes abundantly clear in its opening moments is that you are not some powerful super soldier. In Halo games prior, you've played as mostly the Master Chief, a Spartan pumped full of augmentations with a penchant for violence and a pretty lady in your head to run the whole show. In Halo 2 and in 3's co-op, you get to play as the Arbiter, a Covenant heretic sent on what was essentially a suicide mission but wound up surviving unscathed and lived to fight the cult that wronged him. No, see, in ODST's A story, you play as an unnamed rookie, and while he is kitted in reinforced Kevlar gear and carries a suppressed submachine gun and enough ammo to level a small army, he's still only human. All of the ODSTs are slower, they can't jump nearly as high, and their armor lacks proper energy shields. You can tank a few hits and tough it out, but eventually your stamina will give and your violent bloodletting becomes too much to bear. In effect, you have the Halo standard regenerating shields, but stamina seems to be a little slower to regenerate than Chief's shield, and you will take health damage very periodically. For this reason, first aid kits make their return to the franchise for the first time since Combat Evolved, automatically topping off your HP on contact. And to help them navigate this sprawling, crumbling metropolis, the ODSTs have access to the Visor heads-up display. Visor is actually really cool and very appreciated in this game. Sure, it's a 3D map you can pull open and scrub across, not unlike that from the new Doom games, but it's also a mission objective reminder in case you need to take a break. It stores codec information you find like video and audio logs from survivors trying to flee New Mombasa, and hitting the flashlight toggle doesn't. Instead, activating a scanner feature that washes out the color, reduces contrast significantly, and highlights the game in various shades. Orange lines tell you you're looking at a prop, green is used for allies, red for enemies, blue for weapons and grenades, and the 6 clues as to what happened to your squad are in yellow. ODST features a sprawling chunk of downtown New Mombasa to explore, complete with roving Covenant patrols, auto docks on every corner, wreckage aplenty, and most importantly, the signs of past firefights scattered around the city. The player has to find 6 objects relating to the 6 other members of the ODST squad and piece together what happened during the past 6 hours. And here the game reverts back to the Halo we know and love, mostly. Now, I'm not breaking new ground. In fact, this might be the single most common sentence in human history. Come on, say it with me. Halo 3 ODST in homage to the campaign retells the story of events in very retrospective and predominantly flashback-centric manner. Each of the 6 clues come with a playable segment from the past 6 hours, showing how that object got there over time, showing off the scene from the instant the ODSTs touched down. Then, over the next few hours, you take control of a different troop in each one, most of them members of the Firefly cast for some reason, and each one has a slightly different task. Sometimes you're planting explosives to destroy a bridge and prevent the Covenant from getting in. Sometimes you're a sniper, picking off brutes and about to get your rifle jammed through your lungs. Sometimes you get to fly a Banshee through corridors and tunnels. They each have dialogue between one another as the level progresses, and in the end you get to see exactly how the bits and bobs you discover wound up where they did. Heck, while the game points them out in the intended order, after you find the first one, you are free to track them down in whatever order and play the corresponding levels as you see fit. And in the rookie segments, you get less of the loud orchestral brassy sound Halo's become known for, and more sweet noir-inspired jazz as you go sleuthing for your next clue. I do want to touch on the music, as what plays in the ruined New Mombasa is beautiful, honestly. It fits the emotional turmoil of not knowing if your squad made it out alive, if they declared you dead, if they're all dead themselves. And while Martin O'Donnell and Michael Salvatore worked on this soundtrack much the same as the rest of the Halo series, this one's more somber jazz-inspired soundtrack absolutely smacks of the work of the late Stan Lepard. You know what? Fuck the Halo 3 ODST soundtrack real quick. Can we bump Stan's greatest masterpiece, that there 1996 Internet Starter Kit Velcome in the fucking Windows XP startup music, baby? At the end of the campaign, the player comes across the Superintendent, a supercomputer that manages all of the tech in New Mombasa's infrastructure. This tech, though, has been run through by an engineer, a forerunner critter that I've never seen before. Hold on now. Okay, they were supposed to appear in Halo Combat Evolved, but they were cut. Other than in Halo Wars, this is their first appearance. That's kind of neat, I guess. This one has absorbed all of the information inside the Superintendent, and that could potentially include some idea as to what the Covenant is after. And we take that info and run with it, and it's used to help push the Covenant back in Halo 3. That's neat. While the main Halo titles have you playing as hulking behemoths who can shrug off falling 100 stories, ODST tells the story of regular people. You don't destroy a Halo, you don't take down a Prophet. You take fall damage. You're just boots on the ground, trying to figure out your mission and retrieve some intel under the non-specific orders of your superior. But your actions have big implications for the world at large in Halo. Without the ODSTs, Halo 3 would have had to have been a much longer game, no doubt. But this is a $60 game now, at least it was when it launched. How did they manage to make sure people didn't feel ripped off? Well, ODST's Disc 2 contains the entirety of Halo 3's multiplayer. That'll do it. Just pop that into the Xbox and you don't need to know how the Covenant dies. You can just go sleuthing and then burst some heads with your friends. But it also comes with Firefight, a survival horde-like mode that, let's be real, is effectively just tiny segments of the campaign playable in online lobbies. If there's one level design trope ODST loves, it's having you clear a wave of enemies before you can progress. And that all was building up to prepping you for the game's other multiplayer mode. Critically, Halo ODST was not the smash success Halo 3 was. I mean, it sold like gangbusters, even outselling Halo 3 for a short while, but this may have been because the next Halo game's multiplayer would be available in a public beta for ODST players. But when it came time for review scores, critics either loved it and felt it was ambitious, but not really the next step for the Halo franchise, or that it was an overpriced, glorified expansion pack that slapped some old Halo 3 content onto Disc 2 to justify a $60 price tag. Hell, I didn't even know 3 and 3 ODST were different games until I got the Master Chief Collection. I had assumed it was some kind of re-release, not unlike an Ultimate or Game of the Year edition. But without an Xbox of my own, or Halo friends to talk to, my own quandaries about the world of Halo ODST went unanswered until 2020. While the game got plenty of 8s and 9s, its short length was a point of contention, and in hindsight it's clear why the game was as small as it was. This wasn't the final stop for Halo. Rather, it was a detour to patch up a hole in their schedule, to try something new and experiment with the world one final time before the finale. We're going even further back in time, to the days preceding even combat evolved, though it's safe to assume the combat will indeed evolve, as Bungie delivers their final exam before graduating from Microsoft Game Studios and earning their freedom with Halo Reach. If you liked this video and you'd like to see more, I'd recommend subscribing. Coffee and social media links are in the description.